Chapter 6, Friends. The door was pushed open. Entering was a handsome young waiter, about 20 years old. Not knowing what good thing happened, his face was slightly red. Everyone saw that the waiter came in, no longer looking at the door. "Didn't you say that Du Roi would come right away? It's almost time for dinner." Xiangxing saw that the person who came was not Du Roi, so she asked Chen Yan to try calling again. "If not, you call again and try calling again. Thank you for leading the way." Laughter came from the door, because it had just been quiet for a while. Now the room was not as noisy as before. The sound of this sentence was neither loud nor soft, so most of the people inside could hear it. Xiangxing looked at the person who came. She swallowed the words that had not yet left her mouth, and kept quiet. Xiangxing thought many times about how Du Roi would look after the tragedy that happened at home. Perhaps she would collapse, perhaps she would become pale. Perhaps she would become even more arrogant, perhaps she would become desperate and crazy, but she never thought of her current calm and composed appearance. Du Roi was already more than 3 months pregnant, and Aunt Lu had imposed restrictions on her, forcing her to put away her slightly tight jeans and high heels that were not good for the baby's growth. In her wardrobe, she only had a few loose pants like her home clothes, and the rest were dresses. Therefore, before leaving the house, in order to not let anyone notice her slightly bulging belly, she put on an ankle-length dress, and a coat over it. She wore a pair of flat shoes, comfortable and simple. Even her hair was lightly tied up, and she went out. When others saw her, she was a tall and slender girl, with all her hair tied into a slightly messy bun, revealing a bit of a gentle and relaxed expression on her delicate face, giving people a feeling of extraordinary intimacy, unlike the noble and distant feeling from before. Behind her neck and ears, there were a few strands of sideburns, gentle and beautiful, adding a bit of a woman's charm, revealing a slender neck, with an indescribable sexiness. A floor-length dress and a coat made her look even more tall and slender like a model. In a flash, everyone seemed to not know this person, completely stunned. Xiao Xian was absent-minded, but when she regained her senses, she saw everyone looking at Du Roi with amazed eyes, and a trace of mist could not help but appear in her eyes. "Xiao Roi." Xiangxing was slightly uncertain, and shouted. Hearing this, Du Roi turned around and immediately walked towards them, as if they had never been apart for 10 lifetimes, had never left, and casually found a place to sit down. The waiter behind looked at the crowd of people around him in confusion, then pursed his lips in satisfaction and smiled. Fortunately it wasn't just him who was so flustered. Looking around, compared to them, he himself was still relatively calm. Just slightly blushing. "What, don't you recognize me?" She raised her eyebrows. "Oh my God, Xiao Roi, no, Du Roi, how come you've changed so much?" Without waiting for anyone to react, Wang Mingyu cried out loudly. TSK, eat something like this skin." Yao Yu couldn't bear the temptation, and couldn't help but reach out to pinch Du Rua's fair and tender face, so smooth, so tender, woo-woo. She wanted it too, not knowing if it was because Yao Yu was too natural, or if Du Roi was so stunning. The moment she entered the door, Chen Yan unnaturally coughed lightly. "Du Roi, you must have heard of my girlfriend but haven't met her, Yao Yu. Yu, this is Du Roi." "Hello." Yao Yu ignored Chen Yan's momentary distraction. Seeing such a beautiful woman not reacting yet, she should be worried. Then again, she herself wasn't just staring blankly. She reached out her hand and looked around meaningfully. "I've heard of you for a long time." "Hello." Du Roi understood her meaning, but she just pursed her lips and smiled. "Du Roi. Rua. Xiangxing opened her mouth, wanting to talk to Du Roi, but was interrupted by someone. Xiangxing angrily looked back. It was her again. Xiao Xian saw that the people who had previously been distant towards her were now surrounding Du Roi. She bit her lip and stood up, walking towards Du Roi. "Missy." Du Roi was surprised to see Xiao Xian here today. Pfft. Not knowing who burst out laughing, a few mocking laughs followed. Xiao Xian was embarrassed by Du Roi calling her 2 words. She didn't think that Du Roi would actually not give her any face. Wouldn't she be afraid that others would say she was rude and uneducated? Of course not afraid, even if not to treat Xiao Xian like that, others still don't say that Du Rua is arrogant like usual. Moreover, this is something everyone knows. If it is, Xiao Rua's attitude is good, everyone will see today's sun rise from the west. Looking back again, it was indeed an illusion that Du Rua had become gentle just now. This person was always so arrogant. Oh, can you let us talk? Xiangxing impatiently watched this kind of tearful expression, waving her hand to chase the person away. Xiao Xian was speechless, and had no choice but to return to the side of the two people who had just become friends, accepting everyone's comfort and publicly condemning Du Rua. Looking at you like this, there's no need for me to ask if you're living well? Xiangxing curled her lips. Xiangxing always knew that Du Rua was beautiful, but obviously, not the most beautiful, just very attractive. Or is this person being bullied, can change, become more beautiful? Xiangxing sneered in her heart. Not bad, enduring is also living well. Du Rua looked at Xiangxing and Chen Yan, suddenly remembering, in that life that person always said to her, Xiao Rua, you wake up, when will you understand who is worthy of your concern? Xiangxing, who was at that wedding, coldly said to herself, Xiao Rua, it was you who ruined the happiness of the two of you, now, are you happy? Chen Yan. Now meeting friends again, can't help but sigh, the most painful is over, isn't it? Xiangxing saw that although she was initially in a panic, it quickly changed to an appearance that everything had passed, and she couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. To tell the truth, telling herself to comfort Du Rua was really painful. This was also good, less work. Xiangxing frowned, and received the person who brought the food. Chen Yan was not as relaxed as Xiangxing, looking towards Du Rua wanting to say something but stopped. He didn't say anything, she also acted as if she hadn't seen anything. In fact, she roughly knew what he wanted to say. But it was a matter related to the baby's father, she hadn't thought about how to handle this problem, so she temporarily didn't think about it. Anyway, the boat would naturally straighten when it reached the bridge, and everything could be resolved another day. She can ignore it, but Yao Yu can't. Yao Yu, you squeezed him, want to go to the toilet? Just turn left at the door. He rubbed Yao Yu's head amusedly, what are you thinking about all day? Important things. Important things. No? Yao Yu was angry, did he know or not, her hairstyle can't be messy. Yes, the food is here, why don't you hurry up and eat? Who was it that just now shouted that you were hungry? Chen Yan thought about it, well, this matter, it's really not easy for him to ask, he should still think of a way to inform Qi Shen, let him solve it himself. Everyone had a morning of playing, and were already hungry. As soon as the food arrived, they all rushed forward to grab some food and dig in. Before leaving, Du Rua had eaten some food to fill her stomach, so she wasn't hungry, just ate a little. During the meal, the most important thing was to note the names of some people. After so much time, she couldn't remember many people clearly. Xiangxing suddenly remembered something, and moved closer to Du Rua beside her. Forgot to ask you, what do you mean by taking a break from school? Looking at Xiao Xian on the other side, it's not that girl over there playing tricks. Looking at Xiangxing's expression of don't be afraid, speak frankly, I'll help you, she couldn't help but laugh lightly, no. She picked up a glass of water and took a sip, lowered her head and thought for a moment, then said, I just don't think I'll continue studying finance. If you don't want to study, you can change your major, why take a break from studying? Xiangxing refused the ambiguous answer, not knowing what she was thinking about. Her eyes suddenly widened, looking frightened, you haven't been hit too hard, your mind suddenly became stupid, you can't study anymore? What? Are you stupid? Yao Yu ran over to help cheer her up again. Is this really that obvious? Du Rua pretended to look at the sky sadly. Xiangxing and Yao Yu glanced at each other, a sound, happy. I don't think I'll continue studying finance, to be honest, money, I really don't care. I've worked hard to go to professional school to handle assets, it's better to directly hire someone to do it to reduce the work. She exclaimed, next, do some things I want to do, don't worry about anything, more fun. I also want to live like that. Yao Yu said dreamily. That's too simple, quickly marry Chen Yan, do whatever you want. Xiangxing looked at Yao Yu's dreamy face with disgust. That won't do. Yao Yu quickly sat up straight, her face serious. How can I get married so soon? I still want to give back to society what I learned. Stop it, with your professionalism, go be a journalist. Xiangxing rolled her eyes. Am I that bad? Don't look down on me. Wait until I train some musicians for you to see. Yao Yu was extremely angry. Seeing Yao Yu's angry appearance, everyone laughed out loud. Du Ruo looked at Yao Yaya, who was full of life. In her previous life, Yao Yaya and Du Ruo did not have a deep relationship, but they knew that she was a music professor at the university. Du Ruo had heard Yao Yaya play once. Such a lively person, when facing music, seemed very calm and beautiful. Du Ruo thought, perhaps following one's own interests and being stubborn would be the only way to live happily. Du Ruo turned around and saw Xiangxing's serious face. You know what kind of person I am, I like to be direct, if you need help and don't come to me. Xiangxing slightly frowned, seemingly calculating, I will definitely beat you up. After saying that, she fiercely raised her fist. The child lived in the military house, how could she not have a few moves? Xiangxing's punches and kicks were not inferior to those of a male student. If it was Du Ruo who only learned a few moves before, she would probably be a little scared, but now Du Ruo looked at her, she looked like a cute child, and couldn't help but smile to her eyes, of course. Xiangxing saw Du Ruo agree, she was very happy but couldn't help but feel a little strange in her heart. A strange thought faintly arose, was she just considered a child? Du Ruo and everyone stayed in the clubhouse for an entire afternoon, slowly getting used to everyone. Although everyone felt that Du Ruo had changed a lot, no one would find it strange. It was just that when a big incident happened at home, their moods changed quite a bit. It's getting late, I'll go home first, you guys stay and play. Du Ruo looked at her watch, she had already agreed to come back for dinner. Sigh. Wang Mingyu hurriedly stopped her, what's that, it's rare to go out once, how did you come back so quickly? Let's play again later. Du Ruo didn't care, just smiled. I'll take you back. Chen Yan held the car keys, preparing to take you back. I'll drive here, how will you take me? Du Ruo hurriedly stopped him, you guys just go have fun. Du Ruo waved her hand and drove her car home. Where's Du Ruo? Yao Yu returned to Chen Yan's side and looked around, but didn't see Du Ruo. Received 2 phone calls and went home first. Chen Yan shook the glass of wine in his hand. Yu and I just heard something in the toilet. Xiangxing walked behind Yao Yu, staring at the door thoughtfully.